Space holds mysteries beyond comprehension, but sometimes the greatest enigma lies within ourselves. This is the story of Commander Elias Carter, an astronaut who ventured into the stars and returned to an Earth he could no longer recognize. Carter was a name known across the world, a pioneer, a dreamer, and the captain of the Prometheus mission, humanity's most ambitious venture into deep space. For decades, the Prometheus project was the beacon of hope, a testament to humanity's ingenuity and courage. It was meant to be the defining moment in human exploration, a leap into the unknown. But what began as a journey to explore the cosmos became an odyssey of isolation, regret, and discovery. The Prometheus mission was designed to last 5 years. Elias and his crew were to study a distant star system, collecting data that could redefine humanity's understanding of the universe. They were the first to travel beyond the edge of the solar system, and the excitement of the mission was palpable. Elias, ever the optimist, believed the mission would be the beginning of a new era. But as the years passed, contact with Earth became sporadic, and eventually it ceased altogether. For Elias, the silence was the hardest part. The ship's systems kept him alive, but the void of space and the lack of communication from home left him feeling like a ghost. He tried to piece together what might have happened on Earth, a war, a disaster, or something worse. But there was no way to know. Then, after a decade of isolation, the ship's automated systems initiated the return sequence. Elias, weary but hopeful, prepared to see his home again, unaware of the devastation awaiting him. The Prometheus descended through Earth's atmosphere, its once pristine hull now scarred by time and space. Elias gazed out of the viewport, his heart filled with anticipation. He expected to see the sprawling cities, the lush forests, and the vibrant landscapes of his youth. Instead, what he saw was desolation. The earth below was unrecognizable. Vast stretches of land were covered in ash and rubble, remnants of what might have once been thriving cities. Rivers ran dry, their once coursing waters now stagnant, leaving behind cracked riverbeds. The air shimmered with a strange haze, thick and oppressive. Elias's heart sank. He guided the ship to a controlled landing in what appeared to be a barren wasteland. The once familiar blue skies were now a murky gray, the sun barely visible through the choking atmosphere. Silence hung heavy in the air, a silence that echoed in his bones. Stepping out of the Prometheus, Elias felt the weight of gravity and the eerie stillness of a world devoid of life. The air was thin, barely breathable, and carried a metallic tang, as if the planet itself had been poisoned by the years of neglect. His environmental suit hissed as it sealed tightly around him, a thin layer of protection against the toxic atmosphere. Elias's boots crunched against the brittle, cracked soil as he surveyed the landscape. It was a world he no longer recognized, a world that seemed to have forgotten its own past. In the distance, the skeletal remains of buildings loomed like ghosts of a bygone era, their structures twisted and broken as if nature itself had conspired to reclaim what humanity had built. He activated his scanner, hoping to find any signs of life, but the readings were faint and erratic, like the last whispers of a dying world. As Elias ventured further from the landing site, his mind raced with questions. What had happened here? Where was everyone? Were there others who had survived? Then he stumbled upon something that stopped him in his tracks. A figure, shrouded in tattered cloth, standing motionless among the ruins. The figure was hunched, its face obscured by the ragged fabric, but Elias could feel its presence, a silent witness to the destruction. Elias approached cautiously, his hand hovering near his sidearm. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face weathered by time and hardship. The man's eyes were hollow, his expression a mix of fear and curiosity. He spoke in a language Elias didn't recognize, but the desperation in his tone was universal. His voice cracked, as if he had not spoken in years. The man gestured for Elias to follow. Reluctantly, Elias complied, his mind racing with questions. They wove through the ruins, moving past decaying structures and twisted metal, until they reached an underground shelter. Inside, a small group of survivors huddled together. Their faces were gaunt and weary, their eyes hollow with the weight of loss. They stared at Elias, a stranger in a suit that seemed otherworldly to them, as if he had stepped out of a forgotten dream. Through fragmented communication and visual aids, Elias began to piece together the events that had unfolded during his absence. The survivors, though wary at first, shared their story with him. They spoke of a time when Earth had been teeming with life, when technology had advanced beyond imagination, and when humanity had believed it could conquer anything. But that belief had been their undoing. Decades ago, Earth had suffered a catastrophic event. A series of ecological collapses, compounded by global conflicts, had ravaged the planet. Climate change had spiraled out of control, causing widespread famine, droughts, and extreme weather. Wars erupted over dwindling resources, and nations turned against each other. Those who survived retreated underground, forming small, isolated communities. Technology regressed, and much of the old world's knowledge was lost. Elias felt a deep sense of guilt. While he had been exploring the stars, his home had fallen apart. The survivors looked to him with hope, believing he might hold the key to their salvation. But Elias was just as lost as they were. He had spent years searching for answers among the stars, but now he found himself searching for answers on a desolate Earth. Determined to understand the full extent of the devastation, Elias ventured out with a small group of survivors, searching for remnants of the past. They traveled through abandoned cities, their once bustling streets now overgrown with thick vines and vegetation. The sound of their footsteps was the only noise in the stillness, a stark contrast to the lively cities Elias had once known. They found libraries reduced to rubble, their books scattered and burned. Laboratories were overtaken by nature, the once pristine equipment now rusted and decayed. Monuments to human achievement crumbled into dust, their once grand statues now little more than broken fragments. Along the way, they encountered dangers, mutated wildlife, aggressive scavengers, and rival survivor groups who fought for control of the dwindling resources. Elias's knowledge of technology proved invaluable. He repaired old equipment, deciphered ancient texts, and uncovered caches of supplies hidden away in forgotten corners of the world. But with each discovery came a deeper understanding of humanity's hubris and the fragile balance they had disrupted. The past was a reminder of what could have been, and a warning of what could still happen. In the ruins of an old research facility, Elias uncovered a recording that shed light on the events leading to Earth's downfall. The footage was grainy and distorted, but the message was clear. Scientists had warned of an impending ecological collapse, their pleas ignored by those in power. The recording showed the final years of Earth's prosperity, the rapid descent into chaos, and the futile attempts to reverse the damage. Elias watched in silence, the weight of humanity's mistakes pressing down on him. The realization hit him hard. Earth had been doomed long before he left. Scene 7. A hidden truth. The facility held more than just records. It housed experimental technology that could help restore Earth's ecosystems. Elias and the survivors worked tirelessly to understand the technology. It was complex, risky, and untested, but it offered a glimmer of hope. They debated whether to use it, knowing it could either save their world or destroy what little remained. But time was running out. The survivors were growing desperate, and Elias knew they couldn't afford to wait any longer. Elias was determined. After long discussions with the survivors, he knew that this experimental technology was their only chance to save Earth. He approached the machine, his fingers hovering over the controls. The tension in the air was palpable, as everyone understood that what was about to happen could either restore the planet or destroy it completely. With a deep breath, Elias initiated the startup sequence. The lights in the facility flickered as the machine began to hum, its energy building until a burst of intense light exploded in all directions. At first, nothing seemed to change, but as time passed, small changes began to occur. The air became more breathable, the thick haze covering the land started to dissipate, and the first signs of life began to appear. Tiny plants pushed through. The cracked soil and the sky, once gray and oppressive, began to show a faint blue hue. As the hours passed, the land seemed to respond, as if reacting to the energy from the machine. However, the process wasn't without its complications. The high surge of energy attracted the attention of rival survivor groups, who saw the technology as either a threat or an opportunity for domination. As the plants began to grow, the distant sound of footsteps and shouting echoed across the desolate landscape. Elias knew that a battle was approaching, and he would have to protect the only hope left for humanity. When the rival groups arrived, the tension exploded into violent confrontation. Elias, along with the survivors he had found, prepared to defend the facility. They knew that the machine represented humanity's last chance to regenerate the Earth, and anyone who tried to destroy it would condemn the human race to a slow, irreversible death. Using the knowledge he had gained throughout his journey, Elias led the defense with a combination of old-world technology and makeshift weapons. He activated energy defenses, used communication devices to disorient the attackers, and even set traps using the limited resources available. The battle was fierce, with both sides fighting for survival. In the midst of the chaos, Elias realized that this wasn't just a fight for technology, but a fight for the future of everyone still alive. During the fight, he recognized familiar faces among the attackers, people who had been forced to become hunters to survive. But in the end, Elias's determination and leadership prevailed. Using a high-tech device, he managed to disable the attackers' weapons and force them into retreat. The facility remained intact, and the Earth's regeneration process continued, uninterrupted. Months passed since the battle. Earth, though still far from perfect, was showing signs of impressive recovery. Rivers that had once run dry were flowing again, and the soil, which had been barren for so long, was now covered in lush greenery. Elias, standing on a hill, watched the new world slowly taking shape before his eyes. The sky, once clouded and gray, now displayed a vibrant blue, and the air was cleaner, fresher. The survivors had begun rebuilding their communities, using the lessons learned from the past and the renewed hope for the future. Elias knew his mission wasn't over. The work of restoring balance to the planet would be long and difficult, but for the first time in years he felt a sense of peace. He had fulfilled his role, not as a star explorer, but as a restorer of Earth. What he had done was more significant than any mission in space. The future of humanity now rested in the hands of all those who remained, and he knew that together they could avoid the mistakes of the past.